Hello, and good evening. My name is Black Attaja and welcome to Machine. So today I'm going to continue playing more of the Abyss Dark Souls 3. So yeah, the last time I beat the Abyss Watchers. So today I will mostly be exploring around the swamp. If possible, we'll see how lucky that can take. Not sure. Okay, just... Does it work? It works, okay. Always need to check the counter if it works. We need it. And hey, Chicago, how are you doing, man? Thank you for coming so early. Doing alright, thanks for asking. I'm just doing fine. Sleepy. Tired. I want to sleep. I want weekend. Come on, game. Okay, come on, connect to the server. Continue. Now I'm wondering, how should I go there and, like, to the... I actually am just going here. No, did I went too far already? Ah, there we go. Yeah. Attunement. You have no clue what is that? Oh, it's this here. Okay, where are they? Oh, they're down there, okay. Possibly I want to avoid them. Oof. Oh yeah, I forgot to get some arrows. Ah, god damn it. Okay, let me try. Oh, that is just for fix. Oh, come on, really? There we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, no, not two of them, not two of them. Why did I forget to go for the freaking arrows? I would need those. No, I don't want to die. Yep. These frogs, man, these frogs are annoying. Try not to get stuck in these rocks. Just the slightest poison of this, yeah. Jesus Christ, the legs. Oh, come on, really? Really? There we go. Bastard. I think there is no... no bonfire here. Set that one there. I don't have any pyromancy. Can I even have it? That is the question. No. Also no. Oh, okay. Oh, I just forgot some couple of stuff here. It's just that. Okay, now there's bonfire here. Okay. Travel, Firelink Shrine. I need those those arrows, man. I need those. Yeah, just for like only that amount of damage, yeah, no. You can get by only 99. Yeah, only 99, okay. Ashen one. Back. Travel. It's here. Okay, let's go here. You're poisoned! Oh no! Oh crap, I didn't know they have such a long range. There we go. Much easier on with when you're dealing them with the range. Grab. They can take you on like from long range, that's definitely. Okay, it's there. There we go. There we go. Whoa, that was... Ah, come on, really? Are there two of them or just that one? Oh, come on. There you go. He's triggered. Oh, whoa. Awesome. It's good. Oh, there is no... Ah, god damn it. So there was nothing here like that would be actually good. That's a shame. Oh, come on, really? Oh, not two of them, two of them. Okay. Alright, that is just fine and dandy. Let's see what is behind here. Nothing's behind there. I think that there's only items there that there is a the thing, the crabby crab. Okay, let's hug the wall here. Okay, that's good. A bonfire here, right? Yep. go. Oh, okay, there's items there. Oh boy. Those huge one. The huge creatures. I'll be able to actually get those items. Come on. Come on. You're next. And now the crab. I know I was trying at the upper swamp. I wasn't able to get them. Jesus Christ. Don't want to get on me. Whew, okay. Ooh, okay. What is this ring? Not important for me. This is awesome, all these items here. Whew. If I would be like, if that Krabby wouldn't get to that to the dry area, if I would be fighting here in the sludge, no, it wouldn't be even possible. Just this one is white here, this tree. Hi. Hello there. I'm suspicious about those. Voice, Sage Scroll, Titanite Shard. Where is that big creature? Ah, there they are. Damn! Okay, not too bad. I thought he's going to be harder. I mean, I was kind of lucky, so. Oh, come on. Crap. Yep, he got me there. Yep, that one, that attack. Oh, come on. There we go. Blackbow Ferris. Yeah, I have not enough decks yet. Oh, no, only 2 levels I need until that. Until then, okay. Ah. Oh boy, those souls. Oh no, 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 no. Ferris head. Okay. Poison jam, yeah, that is also good. I came up here, yeah, okay. So I think I explored here. At least this way. I want to get to also in the upper one. The upper swamp to get that crabby there. At least only that one is following me. I think that's about. Oh no! I think I also need to go up this keep because I think I didn't got the that one. I think I didn't got the giant lizard. I'm not farming souls, but you know. Travel. Not Ferris. Pharaoh. Old Pharaoh. Okay. What head is that, lol? Ooh, okay. Hope I didn't miss anything down there. Yep, there's the lizard there. I didn't got this one. God damn it. Oh. Oh, Jesus. Ouch. I'm way meticulous. I just don't want to repeat this again. Screw you. Oh, he died. Okay, good. What? Okay. Come on, drop down the shield. Come on. Oh, come on. That could be easily just a headshot. Oh, God. Come on. Yes, thank you. Good. Okay, this was just for bonus. Okay, now I can leave this area, go back to the Beast Watcher area and maybe even check there? If I have any... If I forgot anything? Just check for the items. 32, Jesus Christ, that is a lot. A lot of strength there. Come on! Elevator. Come on. Oh no, not that. Not the Vista watch. I need to check the upper swamp. First time you go back to the Phoenix Shrine. Level up for 1 level. Buy all of those arrows. Cause definitely will need them.
Welcome, host. Very well, then Tophaken.
I think I will go for strength.
Farewell, Ashen One.
Okay. Oh, I lost that fire thingy. Oh, god damn it. Ah. Arrows, arrows.
Ashen One.
I will go for this one. I think it took a while, at least a couple levels, so everyone can get like that silver knight that is around this area. All right, the big one. Jesus Christ. Nope. Oh yeah, one shot kill. That's awesome. Have nothing there, I think. Okay. Oh no, 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 no. Not now! Ah. Okay, come on. Come. The king crab. Oh, there's two of them. Oh, okay. No, that is not possible to work like that. Ouch. Oh, he smacked me. Oh no. Oh, you don't care about the kids, huh? Okay. So, go around here. Yep, he's coming. And I go here, he stops. I mean, I guess. Oh, just come here and let's fight. And now you're at full HP, right? Oh, you bastard. You're fucking A. I don't see. Oh, okay, grab me. Oh, come on, really? Oh, come on. There we go. I think I picked up everything on that side, so... If he keeps disappearing like that, it's pointless to fight him. I think that a round Abyss Watcher already did that. I'm going to check it anyway. That area. So yes, I got rid of this swamp area, that is fine. And the upper two. Let's go here. Great mace. This is everything like I picked up. Hey, may the fence guide me here. Okay, now this is the area. Can be also annoying. Well, hello there. Oh, we have items there. There's water that is coming down there. A lot of fun stuff here. Are these are rebuilding? Or yeah, they are. Oh, he's done. Jesus Christ. Ouch. Oh. That's not shot, dude. Thank you. Thank you very much. I forgot that there's some stuff here that is quite actually annoying. Can go there. Treasure ahead, yeah, okay. No! They're Zambish, not Zambish, Skellies, not Zambish, yeah. Ooh. Backstabbing, nice. You bastard. Aw. Are you dead? I think he is. If you get the souls, then he's dead. For sure. Hi. Okay. Go up here. Ouch. Trap ahead. Oh, you mean this? Trap ahead, okay. There's a trap ahead. Trap ahead. Oh. Oh, whoop. And I actually step on it. So nice. Ooh, that was just like pure luck, pure gas. Illusion ahead. Yeah, actually came from here, not from the other side. You dead? You dead, okay. That end ahead, okay. An illusion. Oh, hi. Sharp gem. Nice. Nah. Oh, Jesus, he's... He's very assassin-y. Oh, really? Jesus Christ. I didn't know that was stacking on me. The blood loss. Okay, next question. Hi. Ah, okay, this is the upper area. A different one. Jesus Christ. Okay. Oh yeah, backstab noise. Damn it. There we go. Damn, they're actually getting now a large titanite. Duis. Oh boy. No secret passage, shit, you liar. That is since not the area to go yet. Okay. Oh, we have. What was that there? And a boulder is coming down here. Okay. Oh boy. Two of them. Okay, let's go up here. Come on. Come on. Who tell you can come here, huh? Okay, that's about it for this area. I think I explored it. There's a lot of brown in this game. Damn it. Ooh, nice. Ooh, Shimitar, okay. Okay, let's move on. Oh no, I triggered way too much. Okay. Okay, he died. Thank you. Thank you for this. Oh, come on. I think you cannot go there, you just need to run down there. Oh, I think you can go from up there. Ah, right, yeah, that is also the way. I think it is, you can go from there. There, you're down there, kill them. Jesus Christ, I don't want to get bored. I know that it's going down here. I know that fact. Come on. I was going to wait for that. There we go. Told you. Aha. Where's that dude? Ah, down there. Okay. Come. Ah, really? Lol. Okay. Oh, right, there's another one there. Ooh. It's... Did he fall down? There we go. Yeah. No. Thank you. Oh, look at that. There is a vampire. Vampire. Uh-oh. Whoa. Nice. Damn it. Thought he died. Ouch. Is this suspicious? I don't know if I want to disturb this. Yep, exactly that. Woo-hoo-hoo. Okay, got the ring. I'm going to roll on that. Look carefully. Oh. Oh, hello. Okay. Okay, you first. I guess he's going to do that all the time. Alright, he's coming. Shit. He's not that. Okay. What the hell was that? Okay. Come. Okay, you come. Ooh, noise, backstab. Trap ahead. Damn it! Oh, I was hoping that it's going to get that. Aha, okay, no. Do not go there yet. Oh. No backstab. Me sad. numbers. Okay, bye. Are you coming back? Whee! Bonk. Whee! Whee! They're having fun! Yay! Come on. There we go. You didn't have enough? There's the bonfire. Ah, I don't want to wait. Yeah, bonfire lit. Awesome. Travel. One level up. I think I didn't find any. Let me just check something. Ooh, yes. Okay. Azika, what?
Welcome home. Very well, then Tuthaken.
Hospitality. Yeah, vigor is still worth it.
Farewell, Ashen.
Farewell, Ashen One. Comes of Cortes. The first where I where is the safe zone? Oh, they're going down. Oh. Jesus. Hey. Hey, no. Oh, those are the roaring skeletons. Oh. There's like a lot of them. Gosh darn it. Oh, oh, the slimes. Right. Oof. Ah, hey, hey, hey. Not that much worth it. I want to get that item, man. Oh, really? It's like stuck there? Oh, this is much faster. I want to get that slime down, man. Oh, he's down. Okay. Okay, I don't want to get too close. Okay. Nah. Nope. There we go. I think they're dead. Oh, more slime? What the hell? There we go. Yes, come here. Oh, hello. Another one is there. Ah, you. Oh, two of them. Oh, come on, Jesus Christ. This time, the problem is that it takes so much time to kill them. Nah, I came here like a wrecking ball. Oh, of course, there is more of them. Oh no, why not, huh? Oh, oof. Much easier. I think that is for most strong in constant defense. Yeah, not too bad. I thought that was working a bit differently. Hey, Freya, looky, how you doing, man? What's up? The puck is bent. Yeah, I don't like those pucks, so sorry. I don't like that they're changing pucks, and I don't like any of them. I know what is happening with original ones, so but you know, I don't like change. They should do like a drawing, not an actual person face, and that would be it. This for me. But they keep changing to some stupid unknown streamers. That is like. I mean, I didn't know at first, and I was checking. Oh, that was the thing that was bent. Okay. I don't like this place. Oh, isn't that the bridge there? Yeah, that's the bridge. Oh, hi. Bye. Oh, I know where's the boss now. Is that the big one? Is this really the way? Huh. I still need to go upstairs there, so... Oh, damn. American has... Yeah, I know. They should do like something that they did with the Lul. I would accept those that POC that is like the what is that, pink square, whatever they had, something like that. But the cancel culture is kind of annoying. Really, it's missing them like completely? Come on, free souls. There we go. Nah. Oh, Nelly. You're a feisty one. Oh, come on, really? Oh, come on. There we go. We have a blood loss? That is bleed, not blood loss. Okay. I'm getting a lot of Titan shards, so that is good. Ah, Grave Warden, okay. I have no ashes. Ashen one. Nah, look at this. I think that is his head or spine. I don't know that there's a crab here. Vision of a crab. What is inside here? Huh, it's a lever, only detour. Oh, there's the... Ah, okay. Damn it. But I know that there's going to be a lot of skeletons there. I mean, detour is a detour, you know? Oh no, yeah, one boss is over there, I think. Hi. Come on. I don't know if there's going to be much more of them. Oh, you're going to rise up, definitely. Oh, this is about if you want to trash this. Oh yeah. Ah, oh, damn it. Is it a bonfire there? Or is this a boss? No, I think this is a boss area here. Crap. Spooky place, huh? Yeah, it is a little bit spooky, but I would suggest not to play Bloodborne. That is a bit creepy one. These are just skeletons. This is like basic enemy in RPGs. Isn't there a bonfire? There should be a bonfire. Is it up there? Who was fighting here? Hey, hello, hello, how are you doing, man? How's it going, just here? It's good, it's going okay, nothing big. Also, you can go up here and there. Okay. I think I'm going back to the bonfire. And then I will try to, is that, yep. That is how many deaths I got. So far. I know it's not good or bad, I'm just like, it's just something, you know, to keep interesting. I'm going back to the fighting shrine. I'm going to level up. And then going to be a boss, and then I don't know what it's. I did just remind I did play this game already before, at least one time, but my memory is flaky.
Very well then taken.
Okay, so I need
Farewell, Ashen One.
this thing. Okay, it's your 10th playthrough. True that. No. It's 1K? Ah, okay. This might be 1K. 800, okay. I think that is good enough.
Welcome. Very well then taken.
Oh, come on, just like...
Farewell, Ashen One.
Oh, okay. Says quicker. Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Welcome. Speak. Very well then taken. Farewell, Ashen One.
Farewell, I'm going to die. Road to the death. The Black Hand. Hello. Okay, have some down there. I think this is the boss time. Oh, works, Captain. Beware of poison. Vision of joy. Huh. This is definitely a boss. No, it's the spoiler time, lol. Yeah, I already played this, but you know, it's just like, for me, it's a game that it's killing bosses. I have no clue about the story, so. Uh-oh. Oh, it's this one here. Ah, right. It's in the darkness. Hi. Yup. Hello. Oh, hello. Okay. Yes, I knew that it was something about that. Are you mad? What are you doing, man? Oh, because I was in that area. Bye-bye. Well, it's not a blind playthrough. I don't have it as a tag, you know. The time was poor. That was wrong. Yeah. Easiest boss. Yeah, actually it's quite easy. Even the first one's not that easy, you know. I think there's another boss after this one. Is that the flaming one? Oh, that is why that is also kind of annoying. But yay. Ember restored. Oh, now there is a... Ooh. Hi. Oh, that wasn't okay. Well, I'm going to spend that. Now it's time to evade. Because I have that much souls, huh? So far I wasn't invaded, so that is good.
Welcome, Hospi. Very well, then take another.
Yeah, you got all the time invaded, I remember. Oh, okay. Oh, because I have Ember, it's something about that to get some items or what? I'm not PvP player, whatever.
Welcome, host. Very then taken.
Oh, come on, really?
Farewell, Ashen One. May the flip.
No. Oh yeah, I have ashes.
Welcome, speak. Very well then taken.
Oh, okay.
Farewell, Ashen One.
Ah.
Grace, let this ashly Iona.
I think I have. Oh yeah, this one here. Buy some embers. Still need to get this stuff here. 20,000 souls, Jesus Christ. Play online, hit others. Just for fun. Oh yeah, thank you. Just for fun, so you can see me like how I'm going to like suffer. Yeah, items here. I did it. Wow, yeah, yes, you did it. It wasn't even that hard. Lara had. Okay, nothing's here. And what is SL? What does that mean? Level something? Broad expensive. Yeah. Oh. It's this thing. Right. Oh joy. I thought it will go down there, but I think it's not yet. Just the steppers. Oh, soul levels. Ah, okay. Soul level. Yeah, and we know it's a gorgeous view. Yeah, we know. Just do something else. Okay. What? Dash required ahead. Bring a doll to be granted. What doll? What they're talking about? I do have some kind of doll here, but no, I don't know if it is the right thing. Oh no, it's talisman. Okay. Yeah. No. Dog. Oof. Doll. Bye bye. Are you cheesable? He's invisible. Oh crap. Okay, it's not cheesable. No, 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 easy. Ah, come on, man. Jesus Christ. No. Hey, 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 oh, hey, oh. Oh, come on, man. Okay, show up. No! You ugly rat. Pontiff. Who's the tak zvanio? Hear the speaker outside of her Bloodborne. Oh, you play Bloodborne. Ah, okay. Creature of fudge. Yeah, I know the Bloodborne doesn't have any shield. Oh, there's another boss. Yeah, in that church. Oh, right. That's what they're talking about. Where to get that doll? Can someone tell me? I'm too lazy to check on the internet. Oh, it must be. Is it that maiden that is selling the doll? Church. Is it it can't be that church. The Dancer Church? You mean that one? Nah. Lothric, I think it is. No, okay, which church then? Oh, this church. No, this is not a church, this is the tomb. Not that one, you just skip it. Ah, cleansing chapel, okay. But where did I get the doll? Is it in the graveyard outside? Kill the boss to get a doll. There was a boss here? Did I skip it accidentally? Yeah, I agree. One of the giants. What the hell? I don't remember this anything about. Like, none. It's not from this side. Okay, I think you can get behind here, but... Remember the boss. Okay. Good story, bro. But I have been down there. Wait, no, you can need to go up there somehow. Oh, right. I mean, oh, I can see the items there. Oh, right. Okay. Oh, crap. And it is wire. Oops, I guess I skipped it accidentally. I didn't know, I thought this was just like, okay, nothing's there, bye. Ah, this is the one here. Fading soul, executioner. Oh. Titan bleed. Oh. Damn it. Oh, damn it. Oh, there's a much easier way? Oh, I can go down here, okay. Oh, this is the old time. Oh, yeah, okay. I was speedrunning. Oh, hello. Shit. Okay, at least I stopped bleeding. Sure, so sad. So sad about what? Oh. Isn't there an area down here? Oh, it ends there. Oh, okay. Stop bleeding. Oh. Dude, I have quite a lot of this. Kind of remembering this now, but oh, there is out of Jesus Christ. Bonfire maybe here? Hi. You see up there? Ouch. I don't get any enjoyment. That's really like here. I want to see a suffer. You should be here like on Monday when I was beating up the Abyss Watcher. Ah, remember this area here, yes. Yes, my name is Key. Oh! Now I can heal. It's gonna take time if I need to find a bonfire as soon as possible. Because I'm going to finish it up soon. There's nothing on a shortcut. Oh, down there. Okay, yeah. Guess you can go up here, yeah. Oh, that fat lady. Vision of above. Hello. Of course, there's more of them. Oh, you're the... Go. Oh no, you go down. Nice. Oh, you. There we go. Oh no. Oh, oof, oof. Where is the church? I mean, not the church, per se. Oh, hello, his pals. You... Oh crap. There we go. Down there's the shortcut, yeah. Oh, really? Who is doing this to me? Oh, you, I didn't notice you. Yeah, well, oops. Okay. Shortcut should be somewhere around here. It's not this. It's not there. Yeah, come here. There's another one there. I know that there's an elevator somewhere. Oh no, not Dark Spirit. No, no evasion. Oh. That's not fair. Yeah. No, it's fun, yeah. Oh, come on, really? No, no. Ah. Dude, I kinda want to finish it up for today, you know? Whoa, okay. Jambish. That's someone's sign. Do you want? I don't want to die there. I did that on purpose. Whew. Travel. There we go. Problem is I don't know much about pairing, so... Hey, you're on the Amber. Yeah, well...
Welcome home, Ashen One. Speak. Very well then taken. Farewell, Ashen One.
Farewell, Ashen One. I think I know what is the boss. Is that the big one that you need to fight above of him or down, something like that? Whew, yeah, I'm going to finish up for today. I need to get prepped for tomorrow and I'm going to play with my friends soon, so... There we go. Maybe I'm not too much high level. Okay, look, thank you for being here. I also watched your videos about that machine gun. And thank you for the follow, Nerodis. Thank you very much. Thank you. Welcome to the Gates room. And this wireless headphones are dying, so thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Thanks to Shikaka, thanks to Nerodis, also thanks for the follow. Thanks for Loki, and thanks for others who joined. Thank you very much. Actually, some of you came here. I hope you're enjoying. So yeah, this is it for me. The next stream is going to be on Friday, same time. More of this Dark Souls 3, obviously. So yeah, otherwise, I wish you a nice day, and see you next time. Bye bye!